Okay, I don't know what happened there. It just suddenly got a thing saying unable to connect on Facebook. So we'll give this a second for people to come back on. It looks like we're back again now. Okay, you can quit sending me these dings. Ladies and gents. Okay. Why is it dinging every time somebody comments? You should not be doing that. That's really annoying. I don't know what's up with the machine today, everybody. Looks like we're back. Hello, we're take two. I don't know what's going on here. Something went on with Facebook where we were unable to connect. If that happens, try the YouTube, I guess. In the meantime, we'll just try again here. I'll give it a minute for everybody to get back online. Wish I had a drink, but again, I got no sink. Welcome, Luann Marie. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. We're just about to start talking about the clemency file of Johann Hoch. Take two, don't know what happened over on Facebook. All of a sudden, I just looked over and it said unable to connect. But then I connected again. So we'll give this a second. I am going to go grab myself a drink for a second here. On account of the fact that I'm really parched, I think I got a LaCroix in there someplace. 1 second, everybody. Well, here's some Benny for you all to enjoy yourselves with. And so you don't forget where you are, Mysterious Chicago. All right, be right back, everybody. We're back up everywhere. I'll give everybody a minute to log back on. I'm going to grab myself a nice sparkling water. Fancy, huh? All right, I am parched. All right, welcome back, everybody. Don't know what happened there. All of a sudden, after about 4 minutes, it just kind of stopped. But we're back now. Yours sincerely with all my heart, all my without a while, wherefore you're all the care for with all my heart. Sink is a mess, but it is being repaired. So, all right, everybody. Working from home today on account of the fact that I got the plumber in here fixing up my sink. I push all of the relevant buttons so I can make sure that we're staying connected here. So, welcome. I don't really know what happened there. All of a sudden, it just lost the connection on Facebook. So, we're starting over. What we're covering today is stuff from Johann Hoch's clemency file. Now, these are the kind of files that you put together when they're trying to get somebody a pardon. All the papers that would have gone to the governor at the time, Governor Deneen in this case. And sometimes in these clemency files, it'll be boxes and boxes of stuff, like hundreds of pages of petitions, full transcripts of the trial, diagrams, maps with circles and arrows, and paragraph on the back explaining what each one is. In this case, it's only about 50 pages of testimony and letters. Most of it was stuff, honestly, that I already had, but still, they managed to find it for me. They'd been telling me down in Springfield that they didn't have a pardon file for Hoch, but I knew the pardon board had met. I knew that there were lots of affidavits taken. I knew the names of the high school where they took some of the affidavits. So now and then I knew it was there. I kept sending them new hints and new names that they could plug into whatever machine they're using. Probably wasn't helpful at all. But one day last week, they looked in a different drawer, and there was Johann Hoch's clemency file. So here's some of the highlights of what was in there. First of all, there was an affidavit by Amelia Hoch, Johann's last wife, whose sister was his last victim. Now, at the trial, she told a whole lurid story that while her sister's body was lying there in the bed, dead of apparent arsenic poisoning, Hoch had said, "The living are for the living and the dead are for the dead. Now, why don't you come and marry me now?" So she had married him the day after her sister was buried, and the very next day, Hoch ran away with all of her money. So she told all of those lurid stories at the trial. She wasn't able to speak for herself. She didn't speak English well at all. She'd only been in the country for a couple of years. So Her affidavit for the pardon file was taken at Springfield High School in front of the German teacher who acted as the translator. So in the translation, she says that all of those things that she said at the trial were really just things that the state's attorney and the police told her to say. They implied that she'd be in a lot of trouble if she didn't. And she went all through these things and went through and was able to make notes herself and make a few corrections in her own handwriting, mostly related to numbers. She said, well, they went through the newspapers and told me that he'd married 50 or 60 women, that he had 5 to 7 women that he had killed. They made me go live with a police officer for a while. I didn't want to, but they said that I had to. And furthermore, refuted that he had ever said things like, for the living or for the living and the dead or for the dead. Now, she took all of that stuff back, but at this point she had completely forgiven Johann and was trying to raise money for his defense. It's a really weird situation, honestly. The way that she behaved and acted at the trial and when visiting him in prison doesn't really line up with what she's saying in the affidavit here, but basically she took back most of her testimony in the course of the pardon file. I knew she had done that from the news articles, but it's nice to have the actual transcript of what she was saying, not to mention she gives some pretty good backstory about her sister. I wasn't sure when exactly her sister came over, what happened with her ex-husband. It mentions here that she had left her ex-husband 19 times. That's a lot of leaving one person. So, some very good backstory here, some really useful stuff for trying to flesh out the stories of Hoch's various wives, which is always difficult. There's very few personal anecdotes about them. There's also some letters from randos. This is something you tend to find in most of the pardon files, just letters from randos either supporting or denying that somebody ought to be hanged. This one is writing to the noted murderer, bigamist, and robber of women, who this person describes as a very guilty criminal. Not that they'd been involved in the case or anything, they just made up their mind that this was a very guilty criminal. He also got this letter from another rando. It's like 5 pages like this. I haven't deciphered all of it yet because the spelling is not great. And it's kind of rambling and incoherent, but it's the gist of it was that he should not be hanged, and then telling the story of George Painter, a man who had been hanged, then turned out to be innocent. Now, that's a little bit of a stretch. George Painter, we talk about on some of our virtual tours. He was a guy in 1896, was accused of murdering his wife, hanged for murdering his wife, even though the evidence was all strictly circumstantial. But then a couple of times, other criminals later confessed that they had been the real killer there. And that was never confirmed. It was never confirmed one way or the other who the killer really was, but it's something that I can notice comes up in a lot of clemency files. When people are trying to convince the governor not to hang somebody, they will bring up George Painter as an example of a man who was hanged and turned out to be innocent, which may not be strictly true. He wasn't even the example I'd go with. I would estimate, honestly, probably 20% of the people they hanged in Chicago were probably innocent. But beyond the letters from randos, there's also letters like this one from the Reverend R. Keene Ryan. This one is especially interesting. R. Keene Ryan interviewed Hoch several times, and he mentions here that he covered the trial for the Chicago Evening American. That is a really big clue, because the Chicago Evening American's microfilm reels are missing May of 1905 when Hoch was on trial. And this has been a major thorn in my side, because I was really thinking, what if Evelyn Campbell, who had been interviewing him all through his first imprisonment, was somebody I want to feature a lot in the book, but we're missing some major files. I'm trying to get like the New York branch of the same newspaper, the New York American. Their microfilm reels might have covered the trial, copying some of the Chicago stuff. But in any case, now I know who was covering the trial for the American. And also note that the guy absolutely thought that Hoch was innocent, at least of this particular charge. It's a big, long 3-page letter where he outlines what his concerns were, especially with Hoch's original lawyer, who was later described as Chaplinesque. That wasn't a term they had in 1905, but people who remembered him years later said he was like Charlie Chaplin in the courtroom. Reverend Keene Ryan eventually served on the Board of Pardons himself for years, possibly motivated by this. Still kind of looking into him. There was also a letter from Professor Zeit of Northwestern University, was a pathologist who had examined Marie's remains and believed that she did in fact have severe Bright's disease that could have killed her at any time, and also noted that he thought the prosecution had probably suppressed his testimony because he wasn't saying what they wanted him to. maybe they didn't. There's also a response from Harry Olson, the state's attorney, in here saying, no, we just didn't know if this guy was any good or not. It's just kind of like, yeah, right, Harry. But then a letter from Dr. Liston Montgomery, who was one of the people in charge of raising money for Hoch's appeals. He appears a couple of times in that capacity, and he wrote with somewhat better handwriting than many of the other people in here, outlining his concerns to the governor. Now, all of this turned out to be in vain. The governor did not grant him any clemency or any sort of or commutation of life imprisonment or anything. He was eventually hanged in February of 1896, but now we've got the pardon file. And that does have some good stuff in it. Not as much as I would have daydreamed might have been inside of there, but, you can't get everything you want. So, once again, everybody, there was some really useful stuff in there. I also got some surprisingly useful stuff still to be found in the microfilm room of the newspapers yesterday afternoon. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we have got Mysterious Chicago. Today, the Mysterious Chicago, the audiobook came out, I guess last night at midnight or yesterday sometime, to my great surprise. And as far as upcoming tours, tomorrow night we'll be doing the full-length virtual tour at Oakwood Cemetery here in Chicago. I realized I haven't done that in a long time. That is where Hoch's last victim is buried, in fact. She's in a little nondescript corner of the place. They couldn't give me the exact location, but I have, the general idea of where the unmarked grave is. She was exhumed out of there, and I might just be going to see the coroner's inquest reports later on today. So, all right, everybody, thanks a lot for joining me. I'll put Benny on for another minute or so. We'll just hang out and chat for a second here. Thanks a lot for joining me, everybody. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago. Yeah, the chaplain Monsieur Verdot really was based specifically on somebody who was not, who was not Johann Hoch, but it sure does seem like Johann Hoch. Violence begets violence. So I figured out which repository might have the coroner's inquest files on Marie. I don't know what all is going to be in it. The major find that, the holy grail in it would be the photograph that was taken to use of Marie in her coffin after she was exhumed that was displayed at the inquest. I doubt they still have that, and I don't know if I even really want to see it if they do. At the same time, yeah, I kind of want to see that. All right, yeah, sorry about the Facebook issues. Don't know what happened there. Did you all get your Spotify Wrapped? My top artist of the year was Samia. I knew Samia's recording of Born on a Train was going to be my #1 song of the year. I knew that as soon as I heard that song. I kind of thought Maisie Peters would edge her out for most played artist overall. But Samia's cover of the Mountain Goats' Born on a Train is nothing short of sublime. Susan, there might be, the mantle's none of my business. There is one with a paw on it, I see. Yeah, the mantle is all rotty. Christmas decorations are not my favorite thing. Not just because I'm Jewish. Now, on the one hand, right now, Twitter's about the most fun it's ever been as we all make fun of Elon Musk. On the other hand, there's now no recourse to all the people who send me messages saying that I killed Jesus. It's like, no, Santa Claus did that. We Jews believe it was Santa Claus who did that.
they all loved it. They all loved those passages when they played by Benny Goodman.
So yeah, I'm gonna post a link in the comments now. I did a whole essay on Samia's "Born on a Train" cover, which is a cover of a Magnetic Field song that I think only she has ever brought out, like, the weirdness of. This like, anthology of American folk music weirdness. There's a famous line in one of those weird old Weird America songs. Railroad men just drink up your blood like wine. Born on a Train kind of takes that literally. Hey. Now, let me go check with the plumber really quick. That's all good. I see the feed is gone again, so I might as well just stop. So, those of you still joining us out there,